Good afternoon, everybody. We're about 2 minutes away from the beginning of a new edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show.
Oh, really?
It's time for some Tuesday Tangents with Luke Mathers. Well, it's not time yet. It will be in about 30 minutes. But talking about news of the day, including RFK Jr. What's he been eating lately? What's his workout regimen? No, that's not what we're talking about. But him, yes, that stuff, no.
Miles per hour. For tonight,
Although that picture of him eating McDonald's on the plane with Trump, Elon, and Mike Johnson, he does look like he does not want to be there at all.
At Burlow Mattress, Black Friday is going on all month long. Get a free adjustable base upgrade with a mattress set purchase. Every mattress we make is factory direct and custom made locally just for you, which means we're passing on hundreds, even thousands of dollars in savings to you all month long. Plus, your Burlow mattress is backed by our lifetime comfort guarantee. You won't find a better Black Friday deal or a higher quality mattress anywhere else for less. A lot less. American made, locally crafted. Burlow.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up.
That Virgo mattress commercial sounds like they recorded it with like putting their hand in front of the microphone.
Maybe they did.
Because all the high end is gone.
Learn about
All right, 30 seconds.
All right, thank you.
Care.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with Mr. Aaron Zommers, our producer and engineer. It is 6 past the hour of 12 noon on this Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Glad to be along with you here on a Tuesday. A little overcast skies, still damp weather. Forecast, Mr. Zommers, looks like on and off showers next couple of days, and then clearing off on maybe Friday, Saturday, part of Sunday before perhaps some snow showers next week leading into Thanksgiving. So,
Tut, tut. It looks like rain.
yes, indeed. So, yeah, it's that time of year, transitional season. People kind of get ready for the Thanksgiving holiday. We're going to talk a little bit about that coming up later on today's show. The TSA, Transportation Service Agency, has some tips for you out in terms of traveling. If you're going to be traveling, busiest days expected Tuesday and Wednesday of next week before the holiday, and then Sunday after the holiday. So if you could avoid those days, if you're flying, do so. Although I'm assuming most people already have their tickets. Just pack your patience, as they say. Also, grocers are trying to make it more affordable to get ready for that Thanksgiving feast. I know Mom already has the turkey in the freezer. She'll probably take it out this way. I'm not sure. Sometimes it takes a while to thaw out in the refrigerator.
It's a smart move, though, to get it early.
Smart move to get it early. Get the bird in the oven or get the bird in the freezer, whichever the case may be. Also going to talk a little bit later on about rural Wisconsin students. Some assistance there for rural Wisconsin students that still might want to get a higher education, as many of our two-year universities are being shut down by the University of Wisconsin system and Jay Rothman. But still, there is some help available. I'm going to talk about that. Some good news for you a little bit later on. I'm going to talk about RFK Jr., what it might mean to have him be the Secretary of Health and Human Services today. And also at the bottom of the hour, we have Luke Mathers in for our traditional Tuesday Tangents at Lukester. Going to talk a little sports. I was at the big game last night, the basketball game with my friend, the family Klein, last night. Had a great time. Good time was had by all. Closer than the experts might have predicted. It was a great game, by the way. Badgers going all the way down, led with like 2.5, 3 seconds left. I can't remember the school. It's like Texas Valley Tech of the Rio Grande or something like that. No, it's like there's University of Texas Rio Grande. So it was not one of your bigger schools, but they were a plucky team, very talented team. Reminded me and my friends of, say, one of these Cinderella teams that come into the NCAA tournament in March, and nobody expects them to do well, and they got one or two guys that just cannot miss on any given night, and they take down some big giant. Badgers survived, though, last night. It was an exciting game. It was a great game. Enjoyed going, and Badgers get the win last night and remain unbeaten. So congratulations. Now the number 19th ranked Badgers in the land. Good time.
Wait, so they're undefeated, but they're only ranked 19?
Yeah, because they didn't start ranked, and a lot of people didn't think they were going to do very well.
Right.
And then they knocked off number 9, Arizona, and that's what put them into the top 25. So you're not, a lot of times, especially in basketball this early on, you have a lot of teams that are undefeated, but they played not so great teams. And so by Wisconsin playing a top-ranked team in Arizona or a top 10 team and knocking them off, that sent them into the top 25.
That makes sense.
So we'll talk to Luke a little bit about that. Check in with his Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks might only win 6 games this year. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't say that when Luke's on.
No, I won't. I gotta be careful. We'll talk to Luke for a little bit about that. Also, Wisconsin Badger football team, Packers, and more. So Luke Mathers coming up at 12:30. Want to begin? Great columnist. He's at CNN. Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter has a great column, and I know this is a national type of story, but I want to bring it back home. We have a cut for you to play on how it may affect how all of us get our media here as we go into a second Trump presidency. According to Brian Stelter this morning in his column, says Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski's fence mending meeting with President-elect Donald Trump has the media world buzzing. And now he has some new reporting about why it happened. Yesterday, an outraged Morning Joe fans registered their objections on social media sites. Scarborough defended his outreach to Trump, telling associates that having FaceTime with a world leader is a no-brainer. And some of his MSNBC colleagues agreed. But there was more to the Mar-a-Lago meeting. According to Stelter, he says, according to 2 sources with direct knowledge of the matter, Scarborough and Brzezinski were credibly concerned that they would face governmental and legal harassment from the incoming Trump administration. Knowing that Trump had threatened retribution against his perceived political opponents and that Trump had promoted lies about Scarborough and Brzezinski in the past, MSNBC hosts decided to reach out to the president-elect. The 2 sources generally agreed with Joe and Mika's impression of the situation at hand, namely that the incoming Trump administration could use its wide-ranging powers to punish people it deemed enemies. Trump ally Elon Musk wrote on X overnight in a post supporting Matt Gaetz for Attorney General that America needs Gaetz to, quote, put powerful bad actors in prison, unquote. And again, there's a lot of internal struggling right now with MSNBC about this. Another reporting by Brian Stelter say that, quote, several of his sources pointed out that Steve Bannon, of course, the Trump supporter, just got out of prison right before the election. Just last week, Bannon warned MSNBC staffers to, quote, preserve your documents, unquote, while predicting Gaetz's Justice Department would pursue cases against them. And Bannon called out certain individuals, saying, quote, you young producers better lawyer up. Now, look, some people believe this is overblown. But again, much of this was talked about in Project 2025, and we talked about it, and others did as well before the election. A lot of people blew it off, said, no, they don't really mean this. Well, now that apparently the chickens kind of are coming home to roost to a certain degree. And again, if you don't believe the reporting, I want to hear now, this is a cut from yesterday on Fox News, of the new Federal Communication chairman, incoming chairman, nominated by Trump, Brendan Carr, remember, he's already on the committee. He's already been approved and confirmed by the U.S. Senate to sit on the FCC. Trump's just elevating him to chairman.
And he's also an author in Project 2025.
Indeed. And so he doesn't need to be confirmed. What he allegedly is going to have to wait for to do the most of the things he wants to do is there needs to be somebody to replace him. Of course, that'll be nominated by Trump and have to be confirmed by the Senate. But it's almost an assured done deal. He is going to be the chairman of the FCC, Brendan Carr. On Fox yesterday, he was asked in an odd way, listen to his answer now. He was asked by the host, how are you going to help legacy media, meaning CBS, NBC, CNN, New York Times, I'll call it traditional or legacy. Asking him how he's going to help legacy media, here was the incoming chairman of the FCC, Brendan Carr's response.
There's a lot the FCC can do. Broadcasters are differently situated than other speakers. They get free access to a valuable public resource, the airwaves, and they're licensed by the FCC. And the exchange for that is they have to serve the public interest. I think it's important that we take another look at that and we reinvigorate it. There's also a news distortion complaint at the FCC still having to do with CBS, and CBS has a transaction before the FCC. And I'm pretty confident that news distortion complaint over the CBS 60 Minutes transcript is something that's likely to arise in the context of the FCC's review of that transaction.
So we're going to explain this. Again, just take it on its face. You say, what's so bad about that? It's the couched language that he's using. And if you missed it, and I don't blame you if you did, prior to the election, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong on this, I'm going to say maybe since Reagan or thereabouts, every major Republican and Democrat nominated for the election has sat down with CBS News for a one-on-one interview the week before the election. Until this year, when Donald Trump took a pass. Said he was still angry with some of the things that CBS did last time. Leslie Stahl interviewed him last election in 2020 and said that she didn't treat him fairly in the election, so he wasn't going to do it this time. And so CBS said, look, we're offering it to both sides. It's your choice if you don't take it, former President Trump. And they allowed Vice President Harris to sit down and do her sit-down interview. And after the interview aired, the Trump folks said, Donald Trump said, that, well, CBS News doctored it. They edited that interview to make her look better than she really is. And therefore changed the dynamics of the interview to some degree. And so they called for, maybe they filed a lawsuit, that they wanted the written transcript or the original tapes, the unedited interview from CBS. And CBS said, 60 Minutes said, go fly a kite. Journalists are protected. They're not required to turn over transcripts of the reporting. Journalists aren't required to turn over their sources for stories as long as they can prove what they're saying in terms of libel or slander. And so the law protects CBS, number one, CBS News, from having to do that. And now you have the incoming chairman of the FCC under Donald Trump saying, you know what? We need to look at that. There's something there. We need to use our powers to uncover that. Why? There's nothing there to see. Even if there were, the government doesn't get to tell a journalist, give us all your sources, unless you go to a court and there was some major crime committed. And it's a very high bar to have to prove that a reporter has to give up their sources or their notes. And again, this wasn't giving up sources. This is a political party candidate telling a news source, I didn't like the way that interview came off on the air. Also, know this, especially at that level, it's not unusual to sit down with a candidate for 45 minutes and 20 minutes of it airs. Standard operating procedure. Going to come back, talk about how this relates to us in Wisconsin and how we get our news. It's the Allbaugh Show for a Tuesday on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Crazy. That's how almost everything that's not live works. You record extra and then trim it down.
Right.
From consistent pain in your joints caused by arthritis, overuse, or injury, you may be a candidate for a revolutionary therapy that could revitalize damaged tissue. This approach can provide long-lasting relief from pain in your knees, shoulders, hips, and other joints with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. To find out if you're a viable candidate, you may request a free consultation from QC Kinetics by calling 608-384-0897. Instead of masking the symptoms, it goes to the root of the problem to resolve it at its source. Already used by thousands of satisfied patients nationwide, this joint pain therapy is available right now to the public, but only for qualified candidates. Again, to find out if you're a viable candidate for this therapy, you may request a free consultation by calling QC Kinetics at 608-384-0897. That's 608-384-0897.
Worthington, Minnesota continues to shine. It's worth a look. We've expanded so many things. It's a time of growth. We've expanded recreation activities with our indoor ice arena, our indoor turf rec center and playground, and our outdoor water park, Worthington, Minnesota. It's worth a look. Our schools have expanded, and so has our industry. We're continuing to expand our population also, with lots ready to build on Glenwood Heights. So let's grow together in Worthington, Minnesota. It's worth a look.
Come to the Lazy Elf Lounge to cheer on the green and gold. Enjoy free Jell-O shots with every Green Bay touchdown. Stock up on $20 buckets of White Claw and High Noon. $15 assorted buckets of Busch Light, Miller, and Bud products. Plus $4 off wing baskets when you dine in. Come for all the fun.
Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Glad to have you along on a Tuesday. 21 now past the hour of 12 noon. Luke Mathers coming up after the bottom of the hour. A little Tuesday tangents with Luke. Look at this top story today from Brian Stelter at CNN. Great reporter, particularly on media matters. And again, I realize this is kind of a national thing. You're saying, Todd, who cares? But stick with me here a second. There's a reason I care. I think the reason we should all care. That Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, on-air partners and husband and wife off the air, on MSNBC's Morning Joe, said yesterday on their program that last weekend they went to Mar-a-Lago and met with Donald Trump under the auspices that, well, we want to have a conversation. Of course, in 2016, few people, maybe Don Lemon on CNN, but Scarborough and Brzezinski gave Trump a lot of time in 2016 in that election. We're pretty friendly. Because why? Because he's great for ratings. And then after he gets in office, they soured quickly and, went after Trump. And of course, during this election, spoke out vehemently. Scarborough, as a former Republican, said this is not the Republican Party. Many of the same things I said. But now that Trump has won, goes to Florida and says, look, we want to have a conversation. To people like me, that rings hollow, because if you truly, like I do, believe what you said prior to the election, this is a consequential election, that democracy is on the line, that Trump wants to be a dictator and is an authoritarian, not speaking negatively of those who might vote for him, but of the candidate himself, Trump. If you really believe that, why now are you going and essentially capitulating, bending the knee, kissing the ring, whatever analogy you want to use, to Trump now? I want to listen to people who voted for Donald Trump. I truly do. And we have taken some of those calls on the show already, and we'll continue to. But I would have no interest in going to meet with Donald Trump personally. I guess if they want to do it on air on the record interview, sure. But again, that's what's troubling to me is that Scarborough and Brzezinski didn't even do an interview while they were there. And Scarborough says, quote, this morning, quote, "We were flooded with phone calls from people all day, literally around the world, very positive, very supporting, going, I understand what you did, etc." Scarborough said. "All of us do the best we could do, and we're all working towards a better America." Before Brzezinski chimed in, "Take it day by day, people." Now, other people are saying to Stelter, the reporter here, saying that one MSNBC regular told him not since Jeff Bezos, quote, refused to endorse the news outlet so betray and misread its audience, unquote. This is all kind of sexy entertainment news, which, of course, I enjoy doing. But the more serious part was the cut we played. Well, it's all serious. But where the incoming FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, says, look, we're going to take a look at legacy media. We're going to follow up on CBS News not giving the Trump campaign all of their notes and the unedited video under the auspices of quote-unquote free speech. I have news. That ain't free speech if journalists can't operate independently. And the reason it appears that Scarborough and Brzezinski went to Mar-a-Lago is because they're afraid. Maybe of actually being jailed. Maybe being come at politically. I don't want to draw a direct analogy to it. I'm small potatoes compared to them, all right? I will tell you this. After I was a whistleblower, so to speak, and was a lead witness in a federal trial in 2015 or whatever it was, 2015-16, against Scott Walker and his administration and his attorney general, and exposed what I knew and had heard and seen in a Senate Republican closed-door caucus trying to suppress votes in Wisconsin, I left politics at a coffee shop. For a small little time, tiny little independent coffee shop, I got audited by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. I got dinged hundreds of dollars, not because I didn't pay my withholding tax to my employee. I did. And they said, no, we got all your payments. But I had forgotten to file a one-page document and sign it that basically gave a heads up to the Wisconsin Department of Revenue that I was going to pay them. They got all the money. I made all my payments on time. I just forgot to send the form that said it was going to be coming your way. Now, can I prove that the Department of Revenue under Scott Walker targeted me for that? Nope, can't prove it. Does it seem awfully odd and more than a little coincidental that that happened, especially talking to other small business people in Wisconsin that have never had anything like that happen? Absolutely. And there's some thinking that Mika and Joe don't want to be audited by the U.S. Department of Revenue now. And these are the issues that are going to start happening with media. I'm not going to name the station here in Madison last night, but ran a story on Republican U.S. Senate candidate Eric Hovde conceding, and then went on to repeat many of the lies and inaccuracies that he leveled against Milwaukee voting. We mentioned this yesterday on the story, and I said, I read one line that he said, and I said, which has been disproven by election officials. Last night in the local reporting here on Madison Television, the reporter never used that last sentence. Just read Eric Hovde's lies and let it stand at that, unaccounted for. This fear in the media companies, reporters of retribution is real. And it's going to affect how each of us receive news and information moving forward. Civic Media is not a perfect company. No company is. I am certainly not a perfect host. No host is. But I will give you this promise. I'm not going to be intimidated by Donald Trump or anybody in the FCC or anybody else. I've had Republican state government come after me for telling the truth. Not the first time. So come on, if that's what they want to do. Now more than ever, our moniker, our line, pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it is more important than ever. I'm not the only one doing it. A lot of other good people are too. But be aware where you get your news from. Who's challenging the truth? Who's telling the truth? And who is intimidating? Back after this. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
News and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. This is your hometown radio. Refreshed. Keeping you informed, entertained, and connected locally across the Civic Media Network.
Nearly all Wisconsin growers have wrapped up the corn for grain harvest, and in the marketplace, corn continues to see some strength this week. I'm Stephanie Huff for the Midwest Farm Report along with you on a Tuesday. Before we take a look at the numbers today, market advisor John Heinberg joins us from Total Farm Marketing. He says part of the reason for price support in the corn trade is
we can touch a little bit on this. We were talking about the Morning Joe stuff, but more importantly, play the cuts of the FCC. Incoming chair saying, that CBS stuff on 60 Minutes, we need to take a look at that. We need to, under free speech, and, how that's all going to play down the line. I listened to, I didn't name the station, but local Madison station yesterday, TV, Eric Hovey's statement about conceding, and then repeated the lies, and never finished by saying, which have been discredited and shown as not true. It's going to have effect on how people get their information.
Mm-hmm.
So we can start there and talk. We went to the Badger basketball game last night.
You were there?
Yes, it was fantastic. Big win.
Not as nearly as a big win as Friday.
No, not nearly, but it was an exciting one.
Yeah, there you go. I saw the score. I was watching Monday Night Football instead.
University of Texas, Rio Grande.
Yeah.
ever. And they were tough last night.
Rio Grande.
Yes.
Is it Rio Grande Valley, too?
I think it is. Rio Grande Valley, yeah.
The Rio Grande Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I saw all the different letters, I was like, what is this school? And then they barely eked it out. I was like, what is going on? Bucks took care of business, though, so that's what was important there.
We want to talk about that.
And the Badgers 5-0, looking pretty good without Chucky Hepburn or AJ Storr. So,
right.
So Gene wanted to talk about how with the recall petition for Scott Walker, they looked at the names, and anyone who signed it who had any kind of traffic violation or whatever, they posted those names and
oh, right.
we can
go there
shame
quickly.
people.
Sure, we can go there quickly. Thank you.
Andrew in Maine also has some comments about podcasts and at what point do ABC and CBS just say, screw the FCC, we're going to podcasts and streaming?
Not soon, because they won't make the same money of that.
But those comments are there if you want to.
All right, cool.
Show them later.
100 weight. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Stephanie Hoff.
You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Bormas. The rain goes away today, but the wind does not. Mostly cloudy skies, with temps topping out in the mid-50s, wind gusts as high as 35 miles per hour. For tonight, mostly cloudy skies, lows in the upper 30s, not as windy, but still a touch on the breezy side. Right now, 53 degrees.
You know Ignite Glass and Gifts 3 locations in Madison, but you can also shop IgniteGlassandGifts.com. You'll find grinders, lighters, collectibles, hand-blown glass water pipes, artistically designed jewelry, and plenty of other items delivered straight to your door or to family and friends. Madison's favorite for glass, gifts, and vape, Ignite Glass and Gifts, Monona Drive, Williamson Street, and Odana Road. Plus IgniteGlassandGifts.com.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail, and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty, and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight.
30 seconds.
What do you
Thank
do? What thousands have. You plead guilty, whether...
The Todd Show on the Civic Media Radio Network, and it's 34 now, past the hour of 12 evening on this Tuesday, November 19th. If it's Tuesday Tangents with Luke Mathers, Civic Media's Luke Mathers joins us at the desk, as always. Luke, sir, how are you?
I'm peachy, Todd. How are you?
You know, for an overcast day, I can't complain. We both wear muted colors today.
Earth tones. I'm earth tones for life, man.
That's fantastic. Again, a week, and now we're kind of over 12 days away from the election. Things are kind of like, I don't know, taking a breath and just kind of recalibrating a little bit. But one of the things we were talking about there before we came into the break was, and I get that this whole thing with MSNBC and Morning Joe and Mika and Joe going down and kissing the ring, maybe figuratively, down at Mar-a-Lago. It's kind of
maybe literally.
Maybe literally. But it's a national type of story. But I think more importantly for our listeners here in Wisconsin is kind of the residual domino effect fallout. And the reporting from Brian Stetler at CNN is that they did this, Joe and Mika, partly because they were afraid of incoming retribution. Maybe not being jailed, but are they going to get audited by the IRS or just make their lives kind of miserable? And then we played the comments from the FCC chair that incoming that saying, this CBS reporting in 60 Minutes, maybe we do want to make sure that they give up all those details, which I think is of course not what we want our national government to be telling journalists. And then last night, locally here in Madison, a local station, which I won't repeat, but one of them had this story that we covered here of Eric Hovde conceding the race. And then they repeated these false claims by Hovde, but never said they were discredited. And I think that this, again, many of the things that we talked about in this show and in this network of Project 2020-25, and a lot of people said, that's never going to happen. I just think it's important as we move forward to keep score and say, oops, that one happened. Oops, that one happened. Thoughts?
It's very convenient that that the former president, now president-elect, insisted that he knew nothing about Project 2025 as it was gaining unpopularity, and the individual that wrote the FCC pages in Project 2025 is the incoming FCC chair. Mm-hmm. That's sure, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's a coincidence. I don't know. But it seems that if there's a lot of different authors and architects and contributors to Project 2025 that all of a sudden magically have roles in a second Trump administration, raises the question, did he truly not know anything about it? Or was he just trying to distance himself from something that overwhelmingly I think the American people do not support.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on.
Certainly will. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Let's go up to beautiful Eau Claire and the tap up there in Eau Claire. We appreciate you listening. Gene, how are you, my friend? And what have you got for us today?
Hanging in there. I'm glad you guys are on the air. That's all I have to say. And thank you so much for all that you've done, Todd and Luke. And Todd, I know what you're talking about with the retaliation, and I'd like to remind everybody that when people were very upset with Scott Walker and they signed a recall petition, their name was up on the internet because I had to Google a name, to get a phone number for my mom, and here came the name, and it took me to the recall petitions where they were on the internet, the person's name, their address, and all the things you had to fill out on the recall petition, and then you could click on the name, and it took you to the court system. And you could see every ticket, any divorces, any bankruptcies or anything on every single person that signed that recall petition. And it actually had photocopies of the recall petition and the signatures. And I thought, what in the you-know-what is this? But there was nothing I could do about it, but that really got me. That was pretty darn bad, and people in Wisconsin need to pay attention because we need to keep that from coming back, like what we had before with Scotty Walker. It's at the federal level.
Right.
It was here. So anyway, keep up the great work. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. We're hopeful with you guys.
Thanks,
you.
Gene. You keep us hopeful, Jane. Thank you so much. Look, I think Gene raises a great point that we've seen this level of retribution here to some degree with government going after people who disagree with them in Wisconsin, to Gene's point. I think that's what concerns me the most, that the intimidation factor, it could be out there. I said before the break, before you came in here, I said, look, it wouldn't be the first time I got, retribution for telling the truth against the Republican Party, my former party. So, I mean, I'm just going to keep on doing it. And if they want to come after me, that's fine. But, it's not just me. There's a lot of other people speaking the truth out there as well. And I think that's just one of the reasons that I think is why I'm proud to work for Civic Media, that we're going to keep on doing it.
Yeah. Thanks for the phone call, Jeannie. It's always great to hear from you as well. Todd, I agree with you. We're already seeing that intimidation is going to be used as a tactic over the next couple of years. The day after the election, Black and African-American residents around the country received text messages saying, hey, get ready to report to the nearest plantation.
Yeah.
Like that.
Pretty sick.
Absolutely. There have been reports already. I forget which outlet I saw this in, Todd, but there are neighbors leaving notes on doors for folks saying, hey, we saw that you had this political yard sign in your yard. We've noted down your address. Be prepared.
Yeah.
The types of political intimidation, because really those amount to threats of violence.
Yeah.
That's what those are. And so the rise of political violence that we saw during the first Trump administration, the rise in hate crimes, the rise in violence is, I fear, one of the things that is going to have to be talked about and focused on the most, because these threats, I fear, are not going to remain threats. In some instances, in most instances, they will probably just be keyboard warriors, very emboldened behind the cloak of the keyboard, behind a screen, happy to send text messages where their face isn't tied to it. But in some instances, and this is where my worries lie, is that there will be people further emboldened to act on those threats of political violence and just commit straight up political violence.
You bring up a great point. I heard an interview yesterday with Bob Woodward, the reporter, and has a new book out, Ward. Has interviewed Trump a lot, and I know there's some people that are controversial feelings on Bob Woodward. That's fine, whatever. But I think the important point was in this interview, he said, look, as a guy who's spent a lot of time with him and interviewed him a lot, the one thing that he loves telling people, both behind closed doors and occasionally on the record, is that the word he uses a lot is fear. That real power, Woodward said this, Bob Woodward, that Trump told him, quote, real power is fear, unquote. So to your point, part of this, some of these things may not actually happen, but it's the continual fear, ginning people up, the unease that allows him to manipulate certain people, and that's a huge concern.
Yeah, was Machiavelli?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, right.
If you can choose to be feared or loved, you want to choose fear. And that is the I think a driving force for a lot of Trump's personal politics. I think if you take a look behind the lens, it's a big reason why JD Vance was on the ticket, because JD Vance was one of Trump's harsher critics in 2016, and he completely flipped throughout the recent years and got to the point where he is now one of the biggest intellectual Zambonis for the former and president-elect.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, fear is going to be a large portion of how Trump tries to coerce folks into accomplishing his political goals in this next administration. It's going to be interesting to see which folks bend the knee and go down to Mar-a-Lago and say, we're sorry. And it's going to be interesting to see who doesn't.
Well, it's a point, if you tune in your radio someday and I'm not here, either A, Trump has plucked me off the air, or Luke just said, I'm tired of you. So one or the other. So it'll be one or the other. But I'm just...
Todd, take a day off? What are we talking about here, folks?
I'm not going to keep... And look, we're small potatoes, compared to MSNBC, but it was disturbing to me to see a news organization locally who I respect and see the reporter leave out the important facts on Eric Hovde yesterday to say, look, these things that he is saying have been discredited beyond the shadow of a doubt, meaning these so-called election discrepancies in Milwaukee, which even when Ron Johnson says there's nothing fishy going on, you know what I mean? And still for people like Hovde to perpetuate these things that are actual lies, they have to be called out. And we're going to keep doing that, not just this show, but civic media and as we move forward. I was at the game last night, called my friend Jonathan Klein, texted me late last night, had an extra ticket, said, you want to come on out in the rain? I said, absolutely. I got nothing going on.
I say the Kohl Center doesn't leak, does it?
No. But it was a little wet getting there, but a great game inside. Didn't expect it to be so close, but the ever tough Texas Rio Grande Valley came to town. And let me tell you, these guys were for real.
RGV.
That's it.
Yes. There we go.
These guys it reminded us of one of these Cinderella teams that come along in March that nobody's heard of, but you get a couple of guys that are really hot just on a night they cannot miss and gave Wisconsin all it could handle. Credit Kamari McGee for really having some great defense in the last 3 seconds to prevent the win for Texas Rio Grande Valley. Wisconsin remains undefeated at 5-0, now ranked number 19 after that big win on Friday against Arizona.
Yeah, it's exciting. The Badgers basketball team under Greg Gard, I feel like gets discounted every single offseason.
Yes.
Where and you have some unfortunate things like Chucky Hepburn and AJ Storr leaving for the transfer portal this last year. Who's the shooting guard that kind of got benched last year?
Connor Essegian.
Connor Essegian, thank you.
Yep.
And Essegian left. There were a lot of different of folks saying, hey, well, their success last year was unexpected and they're not going to be able to do it again. And time again, you see Greg Gard just being like, all right, he goes and finds other folks to recruit to the Badgers and then starts to put together a roster that opens up the season 5-0 and is looking pretty good and formidable against what was Arizona going into Friday night? 9? Yeah. So a huge win there. And I don't usually start to tune in until like close to the conference play once the Big Ten teams start playing against each other. But it's hard to miss some exciting basketball that the Badgers are putting on.
And of course, you can hear those games across Civic Media on select stations. And for free, even if you don't live in one of those select towns, on the Civic Media app, you can download it to your app or iPhone store. Go to stations like WRCE in Richland Center and also Amory up there as well. And just click on that. You can listen to Matt LePay and was Brian Butch last night on the call as well. But to your point, Luke, this kid, John Tanji. Wow.
Tanji's looking
good. What a
40,
stud he is.
41 points against the Wildcats on Friday. Yeah.
And this other guy, Jack Janke. Although things were getting a little janky last night. He's a great player, just a great kid. And it's going to be a very exciting season for Wisconsin men's basketball. And you're right. Greg Gard, the nickname Silent Assassin, because he doesn't have the big personality like a guy like Bo Ryan did. Or still has, he's still with us, but not coaching. But he just gets the job done. And I was listening actually. I was on the road on Friday night for that big game. I was listening on the Civic Media app to Matt LePay. I've listened to LePay a long time, both basketball and football. I don't want to put words into his mouth, or intent, but I never really heard him say anything like this. And this is Todd paraphrasing, but essentially after that big win, he said, look, this is the blueprint. You don't have to blow everything up. You can keep the fundamental tenets that Dick Bennett and Bo Ryan started this program and bring in a couple of guys like Kirk Penny and a couple of Steamsma's back, helping with workouts now, doing NBA-style workouts. And he said you could adapt and move forward without throwing everything out. And to me, it sounded a little bit like, too bad the football program didn't do this as well. Again, I'm not trying to put words in LePay's mouth, but that's what I heard. Because football-wise, they fired Phil Longo over the weekend. The air raid seems to be grounded.
I don't know if the air raid ever took off.
Well,
That's
great
the
point.
thing. Yeah.
I'm worried about. I mean, they could lose out, Luke.
I think we're gonna get that axe. I think we're
I
gonna
hope
take care
so.
of. I think we're gonna take care of Nebraska. I think we're gonna get the axe. So those are my predictions.
We will win against Nebraska. Win out.
I think we win out.
All right, your alma mater, on Wisconsin. Back with more Lukester after this. The Bucks in 6. Is that how many games they win this season, or the conference playoffs? Back with Luke after this on the Civic Media Radio Network. Patrick, that's a good point, I guess. I don't know. I as someone in local media, I'm not sure it's my point to point fingers because, there by the grace of God go us. I don't think we're always perfect either, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, Luke, what's on rotation on Luke Mather's Spotify?
Let's do the Mighty Mighty Boss Town's The Impression That I Get, please.
Oh.
It's a good tune.
Media app.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even
I
considering
bet there's
getting
some
your high school
performance
diploma,
at
you can do it.
Overture Center for.
Oh, probably it might be like the Madison or Milwaukee Orchestra. It wouldn't be Milwaukee. That'd be stupid. The Madison Orchestra or something.
FinishYourDiploma.org. That's FinishYourDiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
John Legend, ladies and gentlemen. John, you and I have something in common because your last name is Legend and you're an actual legend, and my last name is Schwaba and I'm an actual Schwaba. So there you go.
I like this actually.
No, what is a Schwaba? You have to explain.
I'm a work in progress, but as soon as I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. Weeknights from 6 till 8 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Civic Media Radio Network 9 before the hour of 2 o'clock. Probably 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. How much coffee did I
We
have
fell
this
back.
morning?
Todd, daylight savings has already happened. That's a couple weeks ago, man. Come on.
And usually I'm better after we go back to standard time.
Oh no, this standard time sucks. I would prefer
but
daylight savings.
Sleep-wise, I feel better.
No, these
But
last 2 weekends have been just a number. Like,
are you light sensitive?
I'm a morning person, so I feel like daylight savings time affects me more. Like, I think morning people are the ones that suffer the most from.
But now it's
from
lighter.
Either...
It's lighter again now in the morning.
No,
got to get yourself a sad lamp.
We fell back, so it's even
I know.
darker.
Oh, I thought it.
When I wake up at 5
'Cause it's
a.m.
darker earlier now.
Well, it's still really dark, I guess. Yeah, it would have been dark. Yeah, it's dark regard. I wake up so early that it's like, I don't know. It throws me off. It is, I think, a bigger effect when you're having to adjust to your wake up time than later in the day. But that's it's anecdotal. I have no idea if that's true or not. I just daylight savings does a number on me. I think daylight savings time year round would make the most sense. Whatever. I see farmers out in rural Dane County still running the combine at 8 p.m. and it would be dark at that time, regardless if we had daylight savings time or if we were in regular standard time. Because you know what? We don't have these whale oil lit lamps to see at night anymore. We don't necessarily need to adjust the entire clock for that. There's giant, massive headlights on these combines that would blind you at any time of the day. So it's like, whatever. Sorry, that was just a nice little tangent on daylight savings time.
What's grinding your gears, perhaps?
No, I got something else grinding my gears too. So I got another one in the chamber if you guys want to go there.
with Squire Matthews, like
Exactly. It's like, oh.
light the lamp for you.
I drive, and folks, it is that time of year still. Pay attention to the farm equipment that is driving on the rural back roads. Like, please, for everybody's safety, especially when it's hitting dusk or dawn, any of those times where the light is changing, be mindful of those large equipment vehicles on the road. You do not need to swerve around them or past them or anything in an ungodly speed. Be safe, but
100% agree with that. I'll give you a dealer's choice. Do you want to grind gears or do you want to talk bucks?
Let's talk bucks.
All right, bucks. All right. What's going on? Because I'm just, I don't start paying attention until like the spring. But it seems like the Bucks have
struggled.
What's
your concern? If you don't start paying attention,
no, well,
to the spring, what's the problem?
I'm being a little bit facetious.
Oh,
I know
okay.
that
So
I know there's been a lot of injuries. Middleton has had some injuries. Dame has had some injuries. Giannis has tried to do it all. I know as great as he is, one guy can't do it all. There's been concern about the coaching in some of these games a little bit. Doc Rivers.
I don't know if Doc is honestly.
So tell me what's going on, Mr. Bucks fan.
If Doc's getting the heat for some of this stuff, I feel like that's misdirected. I am not one to gripe about the referees because usually it comes out in the
dinged,
wash.
what, $25,000 or something like that.
Yeah, but I think this is a thing. Working the refs works. Yeah. So like when you see Doc, who $25,000 to him, I can't imagine it's
pizza money.
I was gonna say it's like, oh yeah. It's kind of easy for him to forget almost, but that's I think it was well served because if you saw the game against Charlotte where he got dinged for that, it was following another game that had some questionable officiating at the end, but the Bucks still were able to pull out the win. In Charlotte, they called a follow on Giannis that literally LaMelo Ball just fell down.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for the team, and I guess you could equate this to coaching, it came down to the fact that Doc had already used his challenge earlier in the game. This was in about the last, I want to say like less than 2 minutes left, minute and a half, 2 minutes left of regulation. It could have even been less than that. But they didn't have a challenge. Had they challenged it, it would have gotten overturned because LaMelo Ball just falls over and Giannis is guarding him and playing defense. And Giannis, I almost feared was going to get ejected from the game because we've seen in seasons past when he gets very heated with the refs that he could get kicked out of games.
Right.
And I think that's a bigger problem than Doc getting fined $25,000 after a game because again, either the team's going to pick that up or Doc has that money to be able to be fined that. Really, those are just fees. They're not. It's not a fine. It's just a fee for speaking out against the officiating. Those are what it comes to for most coaches in the NBA. And so I would much rather have Doc handle that from the post-game podium than Giannis get ejected in the middle of the game and almost guarantee that the Bucks are going to be handed the loss then because without Giannis, you're going to have a hard time sledding.
Are there any real concerns at this point, or is it just way too early in the season?
I think it's a 24-hour news
out?
cycle for sports too. Same as politics. So they got to talk about something. So let's hit all the alarm bells. Let's talk about and I'm sorry, like there's so much more basketball. There's a lot of ball game left of this season. So they've won 3 out of the last 4. Again, it could have been 4 out of 4 had they not had that poor officiating at the end of the game against Charlotte. I'm hopeful that they're going to be able to take care of business against Chicago coming up here. And as the pieces get around Giannis, I think the more important thing will be if everybody can stay healthy.
Yeah.
I think having a below 500 or as getting back quickly to 500 as we can is important. And then staying there and trying to get ahead of the pace is important. But right now it's going to be stringing together as many wins as possible and staying as healthy as possible for a long run into the playoffs.
All right. Any grinding of gears you want to do, or do you want to?
Yeah, for folks that are saying, have you navigated over? Yeah, you have. You created an account over at Blue Sky, right?
I do. I'm on the old Blue Sky.
You haven't followed me back yet, but
I didn't even. I didn't know you were there.
No,
I have one. I have what do you even call it? On a tweet of Blue Sky, it says, "Let's see what post."
Just a post.
Well, it
Some
says,
people call
let's
them
see what
seats.
happens.
I can't do that. Yeah. I think it's really silly for people to criticize folks going to Blue Sky, saying it's like, oh, you're going to find a safe space. It's like, no, I don't want to be at the place where not like Elon and Nazis are running rampant. Sorry, that makes me a bad person. No.
No, you're a good person. You're a good person, Luke.
Follow me over at Blue Sky. Follow Todd over at Blue Sky. It's nice.
All right. Thank you very much, Luke Mathers, Tuesday Taser. Luke, see you next week, my friend. Stay
Always a
tuned.
pleasure, Todd.
My pleasure. I will see you in hour 2. Don't go anywhere on the Civic Media Radio Network. Woo! Got it all in.
0.7 WMDX.
There you go.
John Peterson and Corey Young.
On our next program, we'll talk to author
What?
and blogger Mike McCabe.
All the
We'll
Guardians
get
of
into the
Gear.
details about the fourth.
Oh, my God, that's
What
fantastic.
is it and how will it change our lives?
The
Thank
John
you.
and Gordy Show.
Appreciate you.
Weekday mornings 6 till 8. The
Oh, very
Dom
good.
Salvia Show.
I had somebody recently in one of the classes I was teaching saying to me, I don't do politics, Mr. Santa. I don't spend all my time watching MSNBC and reading.
I
the
emailed you an
columns.
article
I
that
get
Casper sent
You
me.
might not do politics, but sooner or
Thank you,
later,
Luke.
politics is going to do you. You got to have some basic level of understanding of what government is about and how it functions and a little bit of the history of it.
You need to do enough.
The Dom Salvia Show. Weekdays from 4 till 6 on the Civic Media Radio Network and on the Civic Media app. Enjoying this local program? Find the complete Civic Media lineup at civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app. This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A Civic Media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. A hearing today in the hush money trial of Donald Trump. Prosecutors recommending a delay in sentencing after a jury convicted Trump of falsifying business records. ABC's Aaron Katursky has more.
Donald Trump was convicted by a jury of his peers of all 34 counts. And so the district attorney's office, as you'd expect, I think, does oppose this idea of tossing out that conviction just because Trump was elected. They are two separate things in the eyes of the prosecutors. However, they understand the reality here, and prosecutors do not oppose delaying the sentencing and every other matter associated with the criminal case until after Trump leaves the White House in 2029.
A judge will issue a decision later. Fire dangers in the Northeast continue with drought conditions. Rain later this week could help lower that threat. And California and the Pacific Northwest bracing for heavy rain and possible flooding. This is ABC News.
There's also
This is your
I
local
put a
Civic
message
Media
in the
radio
chat there
station.
for
Want to hear even
something
more?
if we want to preview
Anytime.
Maggie Dawn show.
Find all of
that's
it at
happening today.
civicmedia.us.
Thank you.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. A nonprofit dedicated to feeding people in Sauk County may not be able to fulfill its mission. The Beyond Blessed Pantry typically helps close to 800 families with food each week, but now their lease isn't being renewed. Executive Director Shannon Howley says this changes everything.
If you don't have a building, you can't serve people. So while our main goal is feeding people, you need to have bricks and mortar to do that. We have a lot of warehouse product. We have a lot of things that come in on a weekly basis that need coolers and freezers. So if we run out of the building space, we run out of opportunity to serve.
The pantry has to be out of its current location by January. They're hoping to find somewhere new. And about 50 Wisconsinites have been scammed out of millions after being told their bank account was hacked and investing in gold bars. 49 people have reported the scam to the FBI. The thieves have stolen about $13 million from people here in Wisconsin. That's an average of $250,000 per person. The key phrase to be on the lookout for: scammers said their bank account had been hacked and they needed to buy gold instead. Then once people had bought that gold, the voice on the phone told them they needed to store it somewhere safe and offered to send a courier to pick it up and bring it to the Treasury. And you guessed it, they never saw their gold again. One woman told the Milwaukee TV station she lost $433,000.
You look at that article?
That was her life
Oh.
savings for retirement. Authorities have arrested 2 scammers who posed as couriers, the ones who picked up the gold. The FBI believes these schemes originated overseas, and then people in the Midwest have been tasked with going and picking up the gold. Older people were targeted because they have more savings. Officials
Basically,
say if you get a call
after
from anybody
Ukraine
claiming to
used
be your
missiles
bank,
on
look up their
Russia
phone
that were
number
from the
a
U.S.,
legitimate source,
Russia
call that
has
number, see
updated
if
their
they were the
nuclear
ones who
doctrine,
contacted
saying
you.
that
The
Russia
FBI
may
says
use
most
nuclear
of the time
weapons.
they'll tell
Or
you,
let me see.
that wasn't us.
That's the wrong
That's a
paragraph.
scam. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. You're listening to 92.7
It now states that any aggression against
WNBX
Russia by a
News.
non-nuclear state, if it is supported by a nuclear power, will be considered as a joint
Hi,
attack.
I'm Mike Clemens with sports, college football. We told you after
Not-
losing to Oregon,
not
Badgers
unexpected.
fired their offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, after just 2 seasons. So who will replace him? Head coach Luke Fickell asked at a press conference.
Just who's going to be calling plays for the rest of the season and why that particular person?
Why does it matter? Right? I mean, the offense will, be run, and those guys will do a lot of things collaboratively together, and I don't think it really is important as to who's calling it. I guess it gives you the ability to point a finger at somebody if that's the case, but it's not one of those things I think is that important. Sometimes I think it's overrated in some ways, but it'll be a collaborative group, and those guys will have to work a lot together.
College hoops, Wisconsin with another win, 87-84 over
response.
Texas Rio Grande Valley.
What does it matter?
Badgers
I don't know,
undefeated at
Coach.
5-0.
Maybe because people
The
want to know what
Bucks
your
with a
offense is
win,
going to be like.
101-100 over the Houston Rockets, thanks to a gutsy layup by Damian Lillard.
It comes down to who's going to make the plays, and I thought tonight in that last stretch we was the one to make the plays.
With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
Local radio for you and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Bormans. The rain goes away today, but the wind does not. Mostly cloudy skies, with temps topping out in the mid-50s, wind gusts as high as 35 miles per hour. For tonight, mostly cloudy skies, lows in the upper 30s, not as windy, but still a touch on the breezy side. Right now, 53 degrees.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest. The last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the...
Designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your...
Windshield wipers. eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more noise. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million+ products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them.
About 30
the right
seconds.
Tools and supplies are never...
Talking about RFK Jr. this hour sometime?
Yes. Thank you very much for the reminder.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with Aaron Chalmers on the board. It is 6 past the hour of 1 o'clock. Welcome into hour number 2 on the big program here on this Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Glad to have you along with us here. Overcast skies in the capital city. Many thanks to Luke Mathers for his Tuesday Tangents with Lukester. You never know where it's going to go, and that's the beauty of the segment.
And it goes to such wonderful places.
The more unprepared, the better that segment goes. No, that's not true. That's partially
To
true.
some degree.
To
You
some
have to
degree.
have
You want some
time.
spontaneity, you
Yes.
understand?
You need at least a little bit of time set aside
Yeah.
to just go wherever the tangents take you.
Right. That's what part of what makes that so great. We appreciate Luke being with us. He'll be back with us next Tuesday. Coming up this hour, want to talk a little bit about RFK Jr., Health and Human Services Secretary, the effect on vaccines and the perception of vaccines. Turns out they're pretty important. How might RFK Jr. affect all of that in American culture? Also monitoring current news, a couple of headlines for you quickly. Russia now apparently signaling that it is upping their response, or at least telling. A lot of this is signaling, you understand? Saber rattling. Saying that because President Biden authorized Ukraine to fire missiles into Russian territory, to prevent the aggression from Russia, by the way. Now Russia is saber-rattling, saying, well, they're going to be on the ready now. They're ready to use nuclear weapons. Can't discount it. Putin, not a stable guy. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Because Putin's got Trump coming in a couple of months. So, it would not make sense for him to blow everything up when he knows he's got Trump on the way in. But you never know. People are not necessarily stable there in the Kremlin. So we're following that news. Also, the Manhattan District Attorney just said it would agree to postpone Donald Trump's sentencing to give them time to litigate the president-elect's expected motion to dismiss the hush money case. In a letter to Judge Juan Marchand, prosecutors said they will oppose Trump's motion to dismiss the case and suggest the judge set a deadline for the response of December 9th. Prosecutors said they don't oppose a stay of the proceedings since they would likely to be granted an appeal. Trump's lawyers are likely to file a response, and then the judge will respond or will decide what steps to take next. This has been, as Matt Flynn has told us on this program, this is Trump's modus operandi. Delay. He did it in private business for years. People would sue him, delay. And now he is delayed once again, hoping to be sworn in on January 20th. Well, he will be sworn in, but hoping that when that happens, that essentially all of his legal problems go away. So a seemingly apparent win today in court in the Manhattan case this afternoon. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. If you want to join the program this hour, go back to Joe, listening here at WMDX in Madison. Joe, always a pleasure. You wanted to go back to one of the subjects we talked about last hour, I believe, on this kind of intimidation of the media. We talked about this, the incoming FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, who is already on the commission, doesn't need to get confirmed. He's going to be the new chairman, is the chairman appointee, saying that he is looking at, he didn't use the word retribution, that's my word, but wants to investigate what happened at CBS and 60 Minutes. Joe, what have you got?
Wow, this is just amazing to me. If you want to check out the report, this is one news article. Title of it is Trump sues CBS News over 60 Minutes interview with Harris. Network says suit is completely without merit. It's dated October 31, 2024. What fascinates me is how this is a campaign of fear. And you talked quite eloquently and elegantly about what you had been through in your experiences and really being left alone and isolated after standing up to what Walker and people had put you through. And I applaud what you've done, and I hope you return to this story and expand on it and let people know more details, because I find it fascinating. You were all alone. CBS News at least has a very solid legal department behind it. But one of the things I found interesting when going through this and looking at this one article, people have talked that Trump is looking for $10 billion from the network, and people have used the words that he was defamed. He was not defamed. In the what he cites is not defamation. This is not a defamation case. Instead, this suit is trying to have a novel use of a Texas statute that's meant to protect advertisers from misleading the public about a product. The act that they're suing under is, get this, Todd, it's unbelievable, the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Consumer Protection Act.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
I mean, what?
Right?
Where are they taking it? They're taking it to a federal court in the Northern District of Texas Amarillo Division. This is the same place where one lone judge, 2019 Trump appointee, there have been a total of 14 different political sensitive cases that have gone to that particular court, because they know this guy's under control. They know they can make him spin and dance the way that they want him to. So this is not a case about defamation. This is instead trying to stir the pot, trying to make CBS look bad, trying to say they have edited things so that I look bad. Come on. I mean, how many interview subjects would say, you made me look bad. Get over it. You agreed to the interview. You're handed a release before you do an interview that tells you that they will edit what happens. I mean, you don't just walk in and say, I'd like to see the tapes, and then you and I together will edit the show. Are you kidding me?
Correct.
That's never, ever happened. The tapes for the interview belong to CBS News, and you signed a release. If you didn't want to do an interview, don't sign a release. So I just found this amazing. It's not even about defamation. It is what is applied for Consumer Protection Act. So, check it out. It is amazing because it gives you some idea of what kind of machinations are ahead. They are planning to go on a campaign against journalists, and this just tells you what obscure practices and obscure judges are going to be used to start this campaign. Thanks a lot, Todd. Appreciate the chance to talk.
Appreciate you, Joe. Thank you so much, Joe. Always coming with facts and really, really appreciate the clarity on that story because I had not seen that part of it, Joe. I had not seen that what he was doing is going through what they were doing is going through this court in Texas. And to Joe's point, at the end of the day, it really isn't about the defamation, right? It's about what we talked about a little bit last hour in part, which is fear. And to put the fear of God, to use a phrase, into reporters, into news organizations, that if you cross us, if you say something, report something that we don't like, regardless of whether it's accurate or the truth, or even protected by law, we will come after you and we will use the court system to cost you a lot of money and time and intimidate you. And we, meaning the Trump organization, control all access to the president and government officials, by the way. You have a hurricane in your community? You want to talk to the director of FEMA? Hey, if you're not reporting what we like, good luck on that. And these news organizations know that if they don't have access, it's not just Trump, it's the federal government. It's going to make it remarkably hard to get news and information that their listeners, readers want to hear and see. So a lot of this, Joe is right, is about intimidation. And how many times did we hear from folks during the campaign? Well, it won't be that bad. Project 2025, it's not real. And, well, the courts will stop it. Those have been the guardrails, or part of the guardrails, right? To Joe's point, they're very nuanced in this. The Trump folks are not all just unintelligent people. Many of them are very intelligent, actually, and know how to work and maneuver things. And they're finding this friendly court, apparently, in Texas to do this one on CBS. If the law is followed, it should be thrown out. Any legit judge would just say, this is dismissed. It's crazy, to Joe's points. But you find one friendly judge, hey, maybe this guy wants to, get a higher appointment, whatever. And this is exactly, Trump has a history of rewarding those who are loyal to him. But it's about the intimidation and going after people. And we know the 6 judges on the Supreme Court, the conservatives, in that ruling earlier this year, essentially gave Trump, or if you apply it literally, any sitting president, next to carte blanche, as long as it can be justified as an official act of the president of the United States. So I don't mean to, cause people heartache and heartburn and get everybody all ginned up. I just think it's important, as Joe laid out factually, to know the facts. This is not a time to, I know the tendency is to say, I just want to turn it all off and not pay attention. And look, we all need to take a break for mental health reasons. But we can't, in my opinion, completely just tune out, because we need to be an informed electorate, as we have a state Supreme Court race coming up in Wisconsin this spring. A state school superintendent race coming up. There are going to be state races in 2 years. Again, for state assembly, state senate, the midterm, Congress. And to tune out and say we're not going to try to continue to find the truth is just being an ill-informed electorate, and that does nobody any good, in my opinion. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. If you would like to join the program. Always a pleasure. We'll keep updating you on, again, the Manhattan DA this afternoon agrees to postpone Trump's sentencing in the hush money case until the appeals process plays out. I guess not a surprise at this point, nor was it unexpected. Speaking of court cases, going to want to stick around after our show. The fantastic Maggie Dawn going to be covering this story about Justice Gableman coming up next hour. She will break that down for you, bring you a great guest as well. The Maggie Dawn Show going to have on Law Forward General Counsel Jeff Mandel today at 3 p.m. on the Maggie Dawn Show, so don't miss that coming up immediately after hours. Phone calls and more after this. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Jim in Brookfield wanted to add to that topic, the process is the punishment. He's doing this because he's got the money and the lawyers and everything to just run him through the legal ringer, and they just have to sit there and suffer through it.
That's a good point. Yeah, we could take that.
HS, Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. You can actually help us meteorologists. All you do is put a rain gauge outside, and this is how I tell you guys how much rain Wisconsin got.
That sounds so Coco Roz.
It's a Coco Roz kind of moment.
Matt Nair on air, weekdays at 11 on 92.7 WMDX and the Civic Media app.
Doctors Without Borders is delivering life-saving medical care where it's needed most in communities around the world. From bandaging war-wounded patients in Sudan to providing clean drinking water in Haiti, we're in more than 70 countries worldwide, bringing patients from sick to recovering, from emergency to aid, from crisis to care. This life-saving care is made possible by a global movement of supporters like you. Thank you.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Mike Siegel joins us now to make our popcorn pick of the week. Hey, Mike.
When I was a kid in the 70s, there was no Walmart. There was no
Right.
Sears was everything, from our tools to all our back-to-school clothes, everything else.
You know what?
Pants, stereos.
Jeff Mandel on Maggie's show. I think he's going to be here.
Yeah, they're right next to
Oh,
Power
really?
Tools.
I'm just guessing.
The second floor.
Because that's happened before
You
where
really
he's a
could
guest
get
on the show and
everything
nobody told me. And
Everything.
then
Nightlight with Pete
Makes sense.
Schwaba. Weeknights from 6 till 8 on your local Civic Media radio station.
good
and
thing
on
I
the
thought of
Civic
that now and I
Media
don't
app.
like go out to
Fear you
lunch
may
at that
be
time or
missing
something.
out.
Probably a good
We're
idea.
always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast.
Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Now 21 past the hour of 1 o'clock. Glad to have you along. Going to take a look here at RFK Jr., what it might mean for him to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services. But first, let's go to the phone lines. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Jim in Brookfield. Jim, thanks for listening to us. I assume on WAUK. You wanted to follow up a little bit more on these lawsuits regarding the media. Go ahead.
Right. I just want to say, Todd, that you're spot on that Trump and the Republicans will use the process as the punishment to go after the media, use the court system, even though they know that there's no merit to the case that they're going to file. It's the process that they're going to use as the punishment, even though it's going to be dismissed eventually or, ruled in the favor. That happened right here in Milwaukee when the RNC went after the Milwaukee Election Commission right before the election.
Right.
And they admitted, oh, yeah, there's no merit to that. And then wasn't there a Republican legislator from Wisconsin who went after some smaller media market? I believe it was in Wausau. Again,
Oh,
there
yeah.
was no merit to that.
Correct.
You know, and they are using weaponizing the judicial system, the court system, with or without favorable judges. You know, with a favorable judge, all the worse. But they're using the court system, weaponizing it. And again, the term is the process is the punishment. They're very good at it, and they want to just drain somebody. And when other people see that happening to their colleagues, they're intimidated.
Correct. No, great call, Jim. Really appreciate the call, the follow-up there. You're right. So much of it is about intimidation. And hey, if you get out of line, you're going to feel it one way or the other. You might not be locked up, you know, the lock her up stuff. That might not happen. But we will make your life a living hell on earth, using the federal government in this case to audit you, to come after you, to investigate you, to break you financially, right? Think about how much money this takes people, and especially smaller news organizations, to defend themselves. I mean, CBS is a big corporation, but still, it's not going to be cheap. You're right. It is retribution, and we'll continue to follow this. All right. Last August, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dropped his independent campaign for president and endorsed Donald Trump. In return, Trump promised Kennedy a role in his administration where he could, quote unquote, run wild with his alternative health ideas. On November 14th, Trump completed the deal by picking Kennedy to be Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services, better known as DHHS. A couple of famous Wisconsin people, by the way, have served in that role. Donna Shalala. Under former President Barack Obama, Donna Shalala, longtime chancellor of the University of Wisconsin, really turned this university's sports programs around, hired Barry Alvarez, or got him to be the head football coach, turned it all around, and then went down and worked at the University of Miami, where she is, I believe, originally from, was the president down there as well. But Donna Shalala served as DHHS secretary, and also, of course, former Republican Governor Tommy Thompson under George W. Bush in the same role. And now Trump appointing Kennedy to that office. RFK Jr. is 70 years old, has for decades promoted conspiracy theories and disinformation. He's a vaccine skeptic, spreading the thoroughly debunked link. Try that again, Todd. Spreading the thoroughly debunked link of vaccines and autism. In Kennedy's world, correlation equals causation. And government and big corporations are in on it, whatever it is. DHHS includes the Food and Drug Administration, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, National Institutes of Health, and the Center for Medicare and Medicaid. This is not a small agency. Kennedy is an environmental lawyer with zilch background in science, research, or medicine. He has no experience operating levers of government or administering a big organization. DHHS has a staff, get this, of 83,000 people, and its budget is nearly a quarter of our entire national budget. Opinions from Kennedy, or on Kennedy rather, run the gamut. From he would break the prime rule of medicine, first do no harm. He will transform our quote-unquote sick care industry and save millions of lives, especially our children, by ending the threats of ultra-processed food and toxic chemicals. That's another take. And I've said on this show, look, I'm not against looking into some of these ultra-processed foods. But is that worth jettisoning our entire vaccination plan? I don't think so. Another take out there on Kennedy is his junk science will put every American at risk. Another take, he's a good talker and says things that quote-unquote sound smart, but are actually dangerously wrong. Kennedy has transformed from a left-wing skeptic to a far-right populist, and that has made him a frequent and popular guest of podcasters, YouTube hosts, and other alternative media known as the manosphere. Have you heard this term? How long has it been out there, Zombers?
Manosphere. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the concept itself has existed for a while. The term probably only for 4 or 5 years, maybe.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the online equivalent of the man cave.
Yeah, it's just echo chambers of men being manly. Like, don't wipe your butt. That's gay.
That's actually a thing. You're not making that up. That's
Correct.
actually
that's not widespread in all of it, but I have seen
gross,
it there.
which is just gross and ridiculous. But anyway, but thank you. So the manosphere is a real thing. Manosphere hosts combine both right and left arguments. That's what makes it both powerful, in my opinion, but also extraordinarily confusing. They have succeeded in attracting disaffected followers with a mix of sports, pop culture, humor, and politics. The manosphere populist message is about defenders of free thinking battling corporate and deep state elites that censor free speech. Think Aaron Rodgers. He is deep in the manosphere, right? Popular in sports, somewhat pop culture. Some people like his humor, but he also has these very kind of far out takes on health and vaccines and immunizations. Want to come back, talk about this more on the other side, take your phone calls as well. These are the dangers when you put populists in charge of actual responsibility. 855-752-4842 is the Allbaugh Show on Civic Media.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app.
For Dave in New Berlin, that was me who said.
News, I'm Savannah.
Or no, you're saying who said that
President-elect
online?
Donald Trump has chosen
I
his
don't remember.
transportation secretary
I
and
should
tapped a
look
familiar
that up and try and
Wisconsin
find
figure. He'll nominate former Congressman
It's,
Sean Duffy to lead the
I've
federal
seen it a couple
Department
of
of
different places.
Transportation. The Post currently held.
I can't remember off the top of my head where, but
Duffy
yes,
and Trump
that is
have something
sadly
in common.
grossly a
Duffy
real
was on
thing.
reality
Yeah.
TV shows before his career in politics. He was on multiple versions of MTV's The Real World franchise. Duffy represented Wisconsin's 7th congressional district from 2011 to 2019. He's now a host on Fox Business. And the Democratic Party of Wisconsin has a new executive director. Sarah Abel will replace Cassie Fanili. Abel has been serving as deputy executive director. She ran campaigns for former Congressman Ron Kind. In 2020, he was one of only 7 Democrats in the nation to win in a district where voters chose Donald Trump. And the man accused in the death of Elijah Vu has entered his plea in court. Here's Lisa Hale.
Jesse Vang pleaded not guilty Monday to charges related to the death of 3-year-old Elijah Vu. Vang was caring for the toddler when he reported him as missing in February. Elijah's remains were found in September. Vang is charged with physical abuse of a child, repeated acts causing death, hiding a corpse, and obstruction.
Carolyn Madison
Prosecutors
has
have
a good
until
point.
February
RFK
7th to
Jr.
offer
caused
him
83
any plea
deaths
deal.
from measles
His
and
next court
Samoa.
appearance is scheduled for March 13th. Elijah's mother, Katrina Bauer,
And the
is
other parties.
also charged
Yes,
in the
also
case.
interesting.
Last week, we reported that Advance Auto Parts is closing 700 stores across the country. We have 6 of them here in Dane County. However, the company hasn't released a full list of closures yet. But according to the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development, 6 stores in the Milwaukee area will close. More than 50 people will lose their jobs. Those layoffs will start in January. Now, that's just the paperwork that's been filed with the DWD so far. Other Advance Auto Parts Wisconsin locations could still close, too. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX News.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. Paul Mescal's star is on the rise. With the release of Gladiator 2 this coming weekend, that should continue. According to Variety, the Gladiator will be the featured host on Saturday Night Live December 7th, which means he has officially arrived. Mescal will be the Late Night Institution's first guest the week back after the Thanksgiving hiatus. That week's musical guest will be the genre-bending musical artist Shabuzi. Kevin Costner fans are desperate for Kevin Costner to finish his 4-part series Horizon, an American Saga. The source? Kevin Costner. Costner assured fans that Chapter 3 was on the way a few months ago, but that was before Chapter 1 underperformed at the box office and distributors pulled Part 2 from theaters and sent it right to the stream. Costner didn't sound as confident more recently when he told Deadline in the last few days he is hopeful Chapter 3 will still get made, giving the vibe he is tired of his own project. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
This is your hometown radio, refreshed. keeping you informed, entertained, and connected locally across the Civic Media Network.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Bormans. The rain goes away today, but the wind does not. Mostly cloudy skies, with temps topping out in the mid-50s, wind gusts as high as 35 miles per hour. For tonight, mostly cloudy skies, lows in the upper 30s, not as windy, but still a touch on the breezy side. Right now, 53 degrees.
Attention. If you suffer from consistent pain in your joints caused by arthritis, overuse, or injury, you may be a candidate for a revolutionary therapy that could revitalize damaged tissue. This approach can provide long-lasting relief from pain in your knees, shoulders, hips, and other joints with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. To find out if you're a viable candidate, you may request a free consultation from QC Kinetics by calling 608-384-0897. Instead of masking the symptoms, it goes to the root of the problem to resolve it at its source. Already used by thousands of satisfied patients nationwide, this joint pain therapy is available right now to the public, but only for qualified candidates. Again, to find out if you're a viable candidate for this therapy, you may request a free consultation by calling QC.
Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is now 34 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock. Glad to have you along on a Tuesday. Aaron Zommer is on the board. If you want to join the conversation, 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. You can also text us on the Civic Media app. If you don't have it, go to your Apple or Android device, type in Civic, C-I-V-I-C, Media. It'll pop up. Takes less than a minute to download. It is free, the Civic Media app. Right now, talking about RFK Jr., Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., being appointed as Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services, and what some of the outcomes may be. Again, passing this along to you to think about this, to be prepared, be aware, and also trying to understand how we came to this point. That a guy who's never really worked in government, never really run a big corporation, never controlled, anywhere close to the amount of people, 83,000 employees that DHHS has, gets put in this position of responsibility by Trump. And pointing out the fact that a lot of this has been perpetuated by far-right populists. But Kennedy has really gone from that left-wing skeptic to a far-right populist. And been a frequent guest on podcasters, YouTubes, and known as the Manosphere. And the Manosphere, what makes it both dangerous and powerful is that it's not just one-sided in the traditional sense. It combines both right and left arguments. And they have succeeded in attracting disaffected followers with a mix of sports, pop culture, humor, and politics. The Manosphere world out there online and podcasts and streaming and all, it's not just a politics show. Like Joe Rogan, it's entertainment, the experience, right? And the Manosphere populates a message. It's about defenders of free thinking, battling corporate and deep state elites that censor free speech. I mean, think about that for a minute. They're going after the quote-unquote rich folks out there. So it's not all about supporting the wealthy. It's more about, hey, we're defending free thinking. Deep state elites that are kind of like conspiracy theories. And, people love a good conspiracy theory. And say, look, nobody has a right to tell you you can't say what you want to say.
And importantly, they use that to encourage you to demean women. And it's you can say whatever you want to say as long as you're a man.
Right. All under this machismo type of thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly, since RFK Jr.'s nomination, mainstream media's coverage has pivoted from his vaccine ideas to his views on obesity, diabetes, nutrition, and processed foods. Super interesting, right? And this ties back in with what we were talking about in hour one, the intimidation of legacy media. Not hearing a lot of people talk about right now what we're talking about. His actual ideas on vaccine. Oh, well, you know, he wants to fight obesity. Great. He wants to help out diabetes. Great. He wants to take on processed foods. Great. It's the normalization that makes this dangerous. Some media sources even portray Kennedy as an averaging hero for public, or avenging hero for public health, out to ban the chemicals, pollutants, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, and food additives sickening and killing Americans, especially our kids. Come on, who wouldn't want to be in favor of that? All of these battles would be waged with corporations and interest groups with lots of lobbyists and lawyers. The same ones that contribute very generously to election campaign funds. The battles RFK Jr. wants are not the battles that most politicians want, which is to say that a confirmation hearing for Kennedy ought to be a doozy. Here's, if he gets to a hearing, which I think he probably will be, we'll see. Is he going to be asked about these things? At different points in his career and his life, Kennedy has been an AIDS denier. Saying, well, it really isn't a virus, just completely illegitimate, proven wrong things on HIV and AIDS. Is he going to be asked about his belief on the record that he believes that Wi-Fi causes cancer? Will he be asked about blaming school shootings on antidepressants? How about Kennedy's claim that the CIA assassinated his uncle, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy? Will he be asked about his belief that pleading guilty to felony heroin possession in South Dakota 40 years ago? And most important, will Kennedy be asked if his healthy diet agenda extends to fast food burgers and fries? And will his answer prompt Donald Trump to withdraw his nomination on the spot? Because we know that Trump loves McDonald's. If Kennedy's coming after McDonald's, it could be pulled. That could be the seal the deal thing.
Yeah, and I don't know what he'll do, because there's that picture of them on a plane recently eating McDonald's, and Trump looks happy as all get out, and RFK Jr. looks like he would rather be literally anywhere else.
Yes. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Driving on the roads, or are you parked? To Gary down in Sussex. We appreciate you listening. Gary, what say you?
Well, this is what I think. I think our country has one of the highest for a country that's as big as ours, diabetes, cancer, and everything else. So nobody has tackled this problem with the chemicals in the food until now. Now, is RFK Jr., is he qualified to be this Secretary of Health and Human Services and all that sort of stuff? Probably not. But he's the only candidate that's willing to go out there and try something. So for the next 4 years, why not give it a shot? I eat bad, but I've been trying to eat better. And I buy organic celery and organic apples and stuff like that. Why not? They're not going to use chemicals in it. Why not? Try it. I'm 72. It's almost too late.
No, never too late. Don't say that, Gary. No, look, I mean, there's an area of agreement. I've talked on this show before. I buy Organic Valley milk because it doesn't have the BGH hormones, and my body reacts better to Organic Valley milk. I don't buy everything organic, but I do buy my butter and my milk organic. And for my body, it makes me feel better. when I eat those things. And I don't think anybody is. Well, I shouldn't say anybody. I'm certainly not saying that's a bad thing to take on processed foods. But to the point, Gary, is that I think that too many people are focusing on that portion of it and are ignoring what I'm going to go into next, which are that this guy is just completely proven wrong when it comes to vaccines and autism. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous when we start telling kids and parents that don't get your kids vaccinated because they might get autism. That could kill a kid. I mean, I don't know, Gary, did you get vaccinated as a kid? I'm 55. I did.
Yeah, I did. I got my vaccinations, and my grandkids got all vaccinated. Now, I never did get the COVID vac, and I had COVID twice. The first time I had it, I was really sick.
Right.
I mean, really sick.
Well,
Next time I had it, I barely was sick.
Yeah. But let's put the COVID, because I know I don't want to get into the COVID vaccine right now. I certainly believe in it. I think it's fine. But let's go back to rubella, measles, polio. I mean, I'm assuming if you were vaccinated for those things, I'm assuming you got your kids vaccinated for those things, and have somebody at the top of that administration and a national platform telling new parents, hey, you know what? That polio vaccine might give your kids autism. I think that's extraordinarily irresponsible.
I didn't get autism. I can remember back when I got my vaccination, if I remember right, they put a drop on a sugar cube, and that was like polio, and then the smallpox. They scratched my arm. I have that sore. I still have that scar. So yeah, I was vaccinated.
Yeah. So I think that's what I'm talking about here. And I think this is the point of going through this, that too much of the media is spending time on maybe a couple of the things that I could go along with RFK on, like taking on processed foods or whatever, but they're not spending time on what he really believes and is on the record saying of spreading, not just having a belief, but literally spreading lies and misinformation about vaccines. And I think that's dangerous. But I appreciate the call, Gary. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Charles in Milwaukee, listening to WAUK. Thank you, Charles, for calling in. What say you?
Hey, good afternoon, Todd. I'm worried about that as well with RFK as far as vaccine. I have a niece right now that won't get her son vaccinated because she heard somewhere along the way that, vaccines cause autism. So that is very scary. And I just wanted to push back on Gary real quick as far as no one else has tackled eating healthy. Michelle Obama talked about it, and she was crucified when she said, the kids we should be feeding our kids healthier foods at school, and question, why are we selling big gulp drinks that are sugary at gas stations? And so somebody tried to have that talk.
No, you're absolutely right. She planted an organic garden, I think, at the White House, and she was ridiculed by the right Republicans, made fun of
by the right.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about don't take my fries. If I want to be fat from eating French fries, let me be fat. I mean, and I'm all for changing our food habits in this country. But there are other things, like you said, that we should be worried about when it comes to RFK Jr.
Yeah. Really appreciate the call, Charles. Thanks for listening down there in beautiful Milwaukee. 855-752-4842. Cam in Appleton. Cam, thanks for calling in. What say you?
Bear with me just for this one sentence. It has to do with Gary.
Okay.
I replaced the heat exchanger on an RTU and drove a screw into the first stage condenser coil when putting the panels back on, and dumped 25 pounds of R22. I'm just trying it out because no one has ever really tried it out before. And I'm confident that something will happen. I want you to sleep on that, buddy.
I'm not even sure what that all means, but fine, go ahead. Quickly.
Sorry. RFK is a threat to everything that I know in my life. My partner has an immune system that's completely shut off from medication that she needs. We feel bad to even go anywhere for dates. It sucks. It's not fair. And on top of that, he wants to, I'm not joking when I say this, but he wants to send people that are on medications like Vyvanse and Adderall to labor camps to try to help them get over their ADHD. ADHD is not this made up thing that a lot of people seem to get in their head. It's literally you have parts of your brain that are underdeveloped. It is not something that you can just go to camps for. I'm not going to a labor camp. I'm not going to milk your cows just because you guys kicked out the Mexicans.
Right. I appreciate it, Cam. Thank you so very much. 855-752-4842. Let's go quickly to Carol. Carol, about a minute left. It's all yours. What do you say?
I'd like to talk about RFK Jr. and how he is responsible for the deaths of 83 people, most of them children, in Samoa from measles because of his anti-vax BS. I'm terrified that he's going to make polio great again. And another thing, I can't wait till the manosphere realizes that Project 2025 is going to ban porn. I am just living for that. I'm living for that.
Right? That's a great point. Somebody else brought up in the text. Thank you, Carol.
Or that was Carol who brought it up.
Oh, it was? All right, Carol. Thank you very much. No, it's true. In the 900 pages of Project 2025, one of the things that they want to do, the Heritage Foundation and the Trump transition team, is ban porn. I'm just saying, if you're in the manosphere, that might not sit real well. But we'll see. Gonna come back, finish up these thoughts. What we know about how vaccines and autism are not linked, and why Robert Kennedy is a dangerous appointment. Don't go anywhere. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show for a Tuesday, right here on the Civic Media Radio Network.
.7 WMDX.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this.
Just got an email about Black
we
Friday
are
savings
so
on
high
Zoom.
up. Hold my hand.
Really?
No, you hold
no,
my
thank you,
hand.
Zoom.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
The Maggie Dawn Show.
Tom, your thoughts? I don't believe that people don't know who Trump is at this point, and they have willfully decided to ignore everything he has said in order to vote what they think is the most important thing. And that's what voting is all about. But you can't claim ignorance when it comes time that Trump is going to pull the trigger and do some things that are going to hurt you and your family. That's what's probably going to happen. Yeah.
The Maggie Dawn Show. Weekdays from 2 till 4 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app. Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Stuart J. Waddles. I've been into like pistachios. Now they sell them shelled. That's probably my favorite movie snack for when I'm at home.
Are you getting paid by Big Nut? I don't know of anybody that has pistachios during a movie.
Listen, I would love to be paid by Big Nut. I could do cough drops during movies if people would pay me.
Let's redirect here because this could go bad.
Yeah, I think it already has.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. Weeknights from 6 till 8 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio
30
station
seconds.
on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always...
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Glad to have you along. 9 now before the hour of 2 o'clock. Coming up at the top of the hour, ABC or CBS News, depending upon which radio station you are listening to across the network in the great state of Wisconsin. Partner, no place you can not get us, to use a triple negative. All across the state of Wisconsin, what makes this great network so wonderful. Listening for people up in along the Lake Superior skyline, or skyline, the skyline too, but the shoreline down to Lake Michigan, over to the Mississippi River, up to Green Bay, and all places in between. Glad to have you along with us. And then after that news update, little sports, little weather, Maggie Dawn from 2 until 4. Today, Wisconsin's Office of Lawyer Regulation filed a complaint against former Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Michael Gableman, moving on a grievance filed by Law Forward. Today, Maggie is going to be interviewing Law Forward General Counsel Jeff Mandel. Today at 3 p.m. Not going to want to miss it. The Maggie Dawn Show every afternoon from 2 until 4, followed by Dom Selvia's show, and then Pete Schwaba, Rick Smith, Across America, and Robert Pilot with Native Roots Radio. A great lineup once again here on the Civic Media Radio Network. Want to get to this. Following up, and by the way, I keep saying Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy. I get caught up sometimes. Thank our listener, Tom, listening in, correcting me. It's Robert Francis Kennedy. Sorry about that, folks. But still RFK. But yes, you are correct. Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. A belief in a link of vaccines and autism is ill-founded. Not just ill-founded, wrong. Jill Eisker is a writer who covers autism. She also has 2 children impacted by profound autism. In her piece in the Free Press, Esker provided 5 compelling arguments on how we know that autism is not caused by vaccines. Let me say that again. How we know that autism is not caused by vaccines, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. often insinuates or just says outright. Number 1, we know that a hallmark of autism is dysregulation of brain development starting in the prenatal period. Number 2, childhood immunizations simply cannot explain what goes wrong during gestation. Number 3, there is not a single ingredient in vaccines that can cause childhood brain development to go awry. And no animal study shows links between vaccines and the abnormal brain development seen in autism. Number 4, there is no plausible reason vaccines could explain autism's strong heritability. In other words, sharply increased incidence among siblings, or its strong male to female ratio of about 4-1. Also, vaccine schedules cannot possibly explain the steadily accelerating rates over time. And finally, and most importantly, every epidermal study on the topic has confirmed zero association between vaccines status and the development of autism.
I have another important one too.
Yes.
So the people who are anti-vaxxers are saying if you have a child, you would rather that they die of polio than develop autism. So even if it were linked, which it categorically is not, that's what you're implying.
No, it's, and again, I'm all for studies. I'm all for science. I'm all for, hey, if you believe something is this way, if it can be proven not, hey, that's progress. But there's been no credible scientific study that proves a link between vaccines and autism. And for Robert Kennedy to be spreading outright lies about this, as we said before the break, it's putting particularly kids and elderly folks at risk. Their lives at risk. And again, I'm willing to separate out for argument purposes or just to get to a place where we can agree. I'm willing to separate out COVID vaccines. I personally get the vaccine. I personally believe it's useful. I personally believe it saved hundreds of thousands, not millions of lives. But let's set that one aside for a moment. Without talking about the COVID vaccine, does America really want to be at a place where we no longer immunize our kids for polio, rubella, measles, mumps, chickenpox? Do you really want to risk putting your kids and grandkids in a position where they now contract those diseases? Our hospitals are overwhelmed, and we got a taste of that during COVID. Remember the freezer trucks sitting outside of hospitals as makeshift morgues? Those are the things I wish that our legacy media was talking about more. Not just glossing over and saying, well, Robert Kennedy, I mean, he's all for taking on big pharma. He's all for taking on processed foods. And those things might be true. I'll give him that. But the question is the trade-off for that worth putting millions of lives at risk? I don't think so. And that's why we need qualified people in this new cabinet. That's why we need U.S. Senate confirmation hearings so that we can suss out these things that we've been talking about for the last hour. Information, real news, great conversations. Somebody should make that into a slogan. Oh, wait, they did it. Civic Media. Mr. Zommers, thanks to you. Thanks to Luke Mathers for a great edition of Tuesday Tangents with Lukester. All the great callers. We appreciate you so very much all across Wisconsin and around the nation. Stay tuned. Maggie Dawn is next. Whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. See you tomorrow.
And they were here.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you. Have a good afternoon. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.